Whoa there, Space Cowboy. Brokeback Bebop is a podcast with explicit content intended only for mature bounty hunters. Listener discretion is advised. Listen to all 40 steamy sessions of the show right now by supporting Brokeback Bebop at patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast.
I think it's time to blow this scene. Get everybody in the stuff together. Okay.
3, 2, 1, let's jam!
Are you just gonna accompany the entire podcast? Is that what's happening?
You know I am.
Welcome everyone out there to Brokeback Bebop. This week we are brought to you by eggs. Chomp them, slurp them, shoot them. I think what eggs really are trying to do is rebrand as a different type of product than what they've been naturally. So we're told to advertise egg body shots. You saw in this episode, you poke a hole through the top of the egg, you suck it down. Just put that egg in your partner's belly button. Put that egg in your partner's fallopian tube. Crash it, crush it, and suck it. Eggs.
However you want to do it. In the shell, out of the shell, you're a shell, whatever you want.
You know, in life, we too far frequently are in a shell, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's time to let that shell crack and suck down a upsetting amount of eggs. Like truly too many eggs.
I've had 11 eggs just this morning, Zach. Let me tell you, I feel charged up.
Yeah. I never go a podcast without eating 12 to 30 hard-boiled eggs. It's the only way to keep me fueled, to keep this beautiful voice fueled for the marathon of recording that we so often do.
I need a nice coating of yolk before I can even begin to talk.
Well, Steven, how you doing this week? Another week on the Bebop.
You know, it is another week on the Bebop here out in space. It's been up, it's been down, but I'm happy to be here with you today.
Okay, that was a weird answer.
It was. I was a sick boy recently.
That's true. Do you want to go into any detail? Did you eat a couple too many eggs?
I think I had a couple too many eggs.
Did too many egg body shots out of my butthole?
Yeah, I think something got cross-contaminated somewhere.
I can't imagine how.
Yeah, I tested positive for COVID, and then it turned out I either also or instead of had a stomach infection. And I got a goddamn sty on my eye the first day of it, too.
Ooh,
so it was
that
really
sucks.
Like a
That's almost the worst part.
Triple threat. Yeah, it was not a fun time to be
I've been shitting for 3 days. I've got COVID,
Yeah.
but there's this fucking thing in my
There's this
eye.
fucking thing in my eye.
It's driving me crazy. I feel like I remember when I was a kid and I first got a sty that like a parent or someone told me that like the trick to get a sty out is to like rub it out of your eye using like a coin.
Wow.
And that just seems like the worst thing to do because coins are so filthy. And a
Just
sty
put that
is
shit all over your eye.
a sty is just a piece of dirt stuck in your eye. So like rub it with the old penny.
Yeah. You know, there are some interesting things that our parents or grandparents, I'm sure, told us growing up that make no fucking sense.
That make no sense, like there being a Santa Claus or to be a part of organized religion, just all of it.
All of it is really questionable.
Let's talk about Cowboy Bebop as we get into the half-hour program, unless there's anything else you want to talk about your hemorrhoids and shit.
No, I think I left that all on the table, quite literally.
Yeah.
Shit everywhere.
Today we're talking about the 24th episode of Cowboy Bebop, or session, here on the 25th episode, session, what have you, of Brokeback Bebop. This one is called Hard Luck Woman, and is the Hard Luck Woman in question Faye?
I think mostly, but, you know, this is kind of
It seems like a weird title for the episode.
Yeah.
I get that Faye's longing for answers, and we get some hints, like not really spelled out answers for us. We get some like visual evidence of her wreck and stuff like that. But I don't really feel leaving this episode that it's a Faye episode. It much more feels like an Ed episode.
I agree. Ed's a little bit the hard luck woman too, though. I think both of them
That's
have
true.
had pretty...
That's a good point.
Well, Ed has had interesting luck. Faye's just had bad luck. I mean, she's like a popular teenager. She goes off on a little space trip with her gal pals, gets put in a goddamn coma, wakes up from that cryogenic coma and gets scammed. And then after getting scammed, she gets like rescued from the scam by a dude. And then that dude was scamming her too. So it was really a fucked up time for Faye.
And then there was the dude with titties.
Yeah, titty dude. Scammed her again.
Okay, so Hard Luck Woman. This episode was storyboarded by Tensai Okamura. It was directed by Hirokazu Yamada, and it was written by Mishiko Yokote. The episode originally aired in Japan on April 10th, 1999, and here in the good old US of A, it originally aired on November 19th, 2001.
Do they just show all the fucking episodes in one night?
Is that how it feels to you?
It's like within a month.
Well, I looked, and they definitely aired this episode and the first part of the finale on the same night in the U.S., which feels weird. You think you'd air both of those on the same night?
Yeah.
And then this one with maybe the brain scratch. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Let's do some trivia. I wrote down a solid 2 questions for you, and they've got kind of a common theme.
Well, I've got 2 for you, and they do not... Oh, I guess mine has a little bit of a common theme, too.
Look at us, little common theme boys.
Yeah, why don't you go first, Zachy?
Okay, what color is the ribbon on Sally Young's hat?
Oh, is it like a pinkish?
It is. It is a pinkish.
Nice. How long has Edward's father been looking for her?
7 years.
7 years, you got it.
What color are Ed's father's eyes?
Oh, they are a beautiful crystal bluish green.
I put like a teal green. They're more
Yeah.
green than blue, but I can see where you would
They're
get
very
that, I
crystal-y.
guess. Steven's colorblind, so any guess that's close at all is great.
What was the name of Ed's daddy's assistant?
Oh, shit. McIntyre?
Yeah.
Is that the real name?
That's
and
the
he
real
calls him
name.
a bunch of different things, yeah.
My favorite was the last one. He's like, Macadaddle.
Well, that's like... Truly, he is trying to piss off the person.
Yeah.
He's putting effort into not calling them their name.
Like, you have to work at that one. That's all the trivia I've got for you.
Yeah, it's your turn.
Which brings us to Ed's daddy's favorite part of the show. He told us. We're going to find out in this episode that actually has a lot of stuff to unpack, maybe. So I'm curious. We're going to find out, did Zach comprehend the episode this week? Zach, how are you feeling about this one?
You know, I feel good, and then I remember whole little roads that the episode goes down on for a couple of minutes, and I'm not sure that I'm gonna be able to get all of them. So it's gonna be, do I go for quality or do I go for quantity?
That is always the question,
Yeah,
Zach. that we've
usually
yet to
it's
answer.
neither. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel ready. Let's try.
All right, well, I've got my stopwatch pulled up, Zach. Didn't even bother with the calculator today because
Right.
we're all about business. So, Zach, 20 seconds. That's how long you've got. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
I'm going to count down from 3. Go will be the last thing I say, which will then encourage you to start. We clear on that?
No, I'm sorry. So do I go on like 2?
As
Between
crystal
2
as
and
Ed's
3?
daddy's eyes. All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
Faye is looking for answers of her past and gets Ed to help her find those answers, but they go more down a path of learning answers of Ed's past, and oh fuck, I'm already fucking it up. Fuck. And Ed's dad shows up, and Ed wants to go away with him, but then he just kind of leaves. He's been adventuring around the galaxy, and Ed leaves the ship, and Faye
Stop.
found. Fuck.
Oof. I
Yeah.
thought you started fine.
I know, but then it was like immediately I knew I had nothing else to say in my trying to get it out fast. It just went blank. I had nothing but fucks to give.
Yeah, I'm going to start with what you didn't get.
Yeah,
I
there's
would have
plenty.
liked to if you would have loved to hear something about the orphanage.
I'd be happy to help you with what I didn't
Would
get.
have loved to get, anything about, like, maybe they were going after a big bounty.
Yep.
Got rerouted.
Yep. Didn't get the iron one with.
Iron was not mentioned.
No.
Nothing about the eggs.
Yeah, it was bad. No, but I think we covered the eggs. I think we squeezed
But
all
you
the
did
yolk we
get
get out of the eggs.
Faye wanted to know about her past. We got that we learned a little bit about Ed's. You got that just at the end you got that Ed went. There were like a second and a half left and you got that Ed was going with. I'm going to give that a D-.
Oh wow, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's
we haven't recorded in like 2 weeks and I felt confident and then I wasn't. Yep. I get it. I get it. I think that was like more like a D territory.
I'm sure you do.
Let's dive into the episode. This is a really important episode. Yeah. I've been talking a lot lately about how, I'm just starting to like the show, and now it feels like we're to the end without it feeling like there's any sense of conclusion. And this episode doesn't really feel like a conclusion, but it does feel like we're starting to bring back up the loose threads.
Yeah.
And cross off a few of them, or at least, in addition to that, bringing up a couple of questions that we didn't know to ask and getting the answers for those, like stuff with Ed's past and Ed's future, I think is a really satisfying episode. It's emotional. It is still kind of funny. I was in the mindset that these last 3 episodes were going to be crazy dark, and this one wasn't crazy dark, but it does start to have a little bit of that end of the road vibe.
Yeah, I think this episode does itself a real service by making you think that it's all about Faye's past again, because we've had like 3 of those episodes where we learn a lot of Faye's backstory, things like that.
This one kind of picks up where those left off.
Yeah,
in the beginning.
it's her forlornly watching that, but we get the hint that maybe Ed knows something, maybe Ed doesn't. You can't really tell, but then it turns into more about Ed actually getting closure and seeing that somebody's been looking for her for the last 7 years, which I think is a good thing. I think that I love what they do with Ed's story, showing up at an orphanage just kind of randomly and then just leaving just as easily as she came in. Like, that's kind of what Ed is. She joined this crew and was a part of that family. And
lot of what Ed and Faye find in common with each other. They're both kind of wandering from place to place, looking for a home. Both kind of able to find a home anywhere they go, but both without a permanent sense of comfort. Whereas Faye definitely has a lot of longing for that. Ed seems really comfortable to just be walking around, philandering, and making a comfy place wherever they can.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good in this episode. But just touching on a little bit about the end of the episode, I think that the whole scene from where they encounter Ed's dad, who's been looking for her for all this time, Ed's daddy got some hands. He really was holding his own against Spike and Jet, kind of beating his ass a little bit.
That part was really funny. There was not even anything. It wasn't even like a confrontational moment. Ed is like, this is Spike and this is Jet. And he just wallops on Spike. And then Ed's like, no, I live with them. They're my friends. It's like, oh, well, cool.
Here's some eggs. So funny. And I love that Ed's dad is just as weird and out there as Ed is. I think they do a great job with the Faye storyline in this. She's kind of frustrated, but at the same time cares about Ed. She doesn't really go out of her way to help Ed with anything, but she does kind of suggest, like, Ed, something's been out there looking for you. Like, I'm looking for my home. You have one. You should go back to it a little bit. It's a bit of a coincidence that Faye's here at the remnants of her old life and little dinky Daffy Doo rolls up.
and just how it's also always convenient how whoever the episode is about just happens to be the bounty that they're going after this week. It just happens to be Ed's dad.
Well, that's the thing. So the original bounty wasn't Ed's dad. I thought that was really clever too, where they look him up because they're like, oh, who's this fucking guy?
This is the wrong guy.
And it was like, there's this bounty that's right here, so we don't need to go after the original person. But it was just $50, which I thought was really funny.
Here's what I'd like to do a little bit with this episode, because we're wrapping up the series. I kind of want to take a moment and focus on each of the 4 main characters, or 5 if you want to include Ein, and kind of talk about what they did in this episode, kind of their storyline in this episode. And since the episode starts with Faye, why don't we start with Faye? What does this episode concretely tell us that we didn't know about Faye? Pretty much just that she was in a space accident.
Yeah.
That she was in a spaceship accident. I kind of feel like maybe the story that they're trying to tell here is that Faye isn't gonna be able to get satisfying answers. She's not going to get the piece of herself that she wants out of any information that she gets. And they kind of liken that to where Ed has this really happy reunion, gets to visit with the children that she hung out with a lot a few years ago, whereas Faye just kind of keeps looking and finding little answers that seem to make it even more complicated than how it started.
I mean, it kind of sucks for Faye because all her people that she knew are dead.
Or old as shit.
Yeah, and so
little dinky
the place where she lived is rubble now. Yeah. I thought that was kind of a sad scene for Faye when she like traces in the dirt the outline of like the rooms in her house so she could like lay down just where she used to. Like that sucks. She's been drifting through space looking for some way to find out who she is and where she's from, and she found it out, and she was just like a normal person. But because she was just a normal person, everyone else just kind of moved on, and now she has to figure out how to do that on her own again. So
yeah, it's both sad and freeing because the people that she knew don't have the opportunity that she has to really make a future for herself. She's still young and the world is changing. Like, who knows? We're seeing the world as it's very much reacting to a lot of chaos in the world politically and like terrorist type stuff, whatever was all going on. And she has an opportunity, unlike the people that she grew up with, to see what's going to come after, see like what the great new world is going to be. And it's lonely, but it's also liberating, I think. Yeah. One thing that I noticed about Faye in this episode is I think Faye might just be my favorite animated character in the show because they really do a great job of showing us different sides and facets of Faye just physically, I think more so than the other characters. Just in this episode, there's 2 times where Faye, first when she comes out of the shower and then a little bit later in the episode where she just looks like she saw a ghost.
Yeah.
And without saying anything or without making it over dramatic, you can just see a changed person because of the stuff that they're going through, which I think is just outstanding from an animation perspective, how they do that.
Yeah, I think they do such a terrific job of not, like you said, it's not just her face, it's her body, like her body language and things like that. Like the way she sometimes presents as a very confident femme fatale type thing, but like here, she was a little kid that just got terrified. She was so just removed
in a different way than usual when she kind of gets emotional because Spike is like, what?
Yeah.
Really? Really?
Yeah.
Okay, anything else about Faye? Do you think we covered Faye?
Yeah, I think we covered Faye pretty well.
Let's go on to Ed. Ed obviously is the star of this episode. I'd like to start off by saying, since this episode appears to be the conclusion of Ed's storyline on the show, going into this show, Ed was kind of the character that I had heard the most about because I had seen the little shitty clip of the live-action version of Ed. That was the first Cowboy Bebop anything I had seen was the little clip of live-action Ed. And then I had also heard, probably mostly from you, that Ed is one of those characters that you either really love or hate. And after now being able to kind of see as a whole the arc of this character, I get if Ed's not your cup of tea, but kind of like fuck you if you hate this character.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think they use her really sparingly and really meaningfully. They show a lot of different sides of the character, and she isn't just like that annoying kid character all the time. I think Ed has a great place in the show of bringing some levity, but also being an asset to the show as well. I think if you don't like that character, it's because you want this show just to be dark and brooding, and I think if it was just that all the time, it would be very boring.
I think Ed's so funny. I think that Ed's such a creative character. And you were commenting when we were watching that, you know, some of the movements that were happening are like almost inhuman. And Ed is kind of
there's
inhuman.
some great Ed animation in this episode, which makes sense because it might be the last chance that they got to really animate this character. Some things that really stood out were in the beginning when Faye stretches out Ed's face and even her teeth kind of seem to stretch and snap back into place like it's some type of plastic or something. And then when Ed's father, when they reunite, you've mentioned how kind of similar Ed's father is to Ed, or at least you can see where some of Ed's eccentricities came from, and the way that he just as excitedly tosses Ed around and Ed just as excitedly gets tossed around. They hit a bunch of, it's not like they're moving and flowing as they throw and fall. It's like they hit static positions as they do all of the movements, and it's really, really cool.
I think that there's a noticeable, which is crazy for this show, that every episode is such high animation and like sound quality. There was a noticeable step up for me in the sound design with just the Like I kind of pointed out when they were in the monastery, the orphanage, there was kind of like an echo every time the nun talked. Or there was another moment where like Faye was about to fly away in her ship, and she has that kind of last moment with Ed, where you can hear Jet behind you talking, and like the way like that, just little touches that just elevated. I think the animation was really elevated this episode. There were some shots of Faye that are so like high definition and so much detail on every inch of her body is like so like HD. It's like you're in the room, you see the shadows, you see the light reflecting off of her outfit.
Yeah.
Just so much time and effort spent in these last few episodes that's really, really cool, and I think is really special.
2 questions about the Ed and Ed's father stuff. One thing that I never totally got was what exactly Ed's father and I already forget what the guy McIntyre, what they were doing. Like,
I
what
think
their
they were
goal
like
was.
plotting asteroid stuff. They seem kind of like storm chasers, but more so
I can see
chasing
that.
comets or asteroids or something. They're like plotting the landing places on their like little map.
And then the other thing that I thought, okay, so when Ed's father says to Ed, like, do you want to come with me? Ed is kind of like, wow. And then they have a storm to go chase. So Ed's father runs off. And then in the end of the episode, we don't get a distinct reunion with father and child. We don't get even Ed saying, I'm going to find my dad. What do you think's going on there? Do you think Ed is going to find her dad?
Yeah,
or do you
I think Ed is now going to chase...
Let me tell you my other... Or do you think Ed is kind of taking inspiration from her dad to continue being this philandering, like chasing adventure and going wherever the breeze takes them?
I think Ed was definitely going to find her dad. I think that based on the kind of reactions and how and when Ed left, I think she's going after him.
I just think it's interesting because it's not even a guarantee that she's going to find him.
Yeah.
It could be going
I think Ed
completely
knows
different
that.
direction. Yeah. Which I think I like even a little bit more than now father and daughter are together and going off on adventures. It's that now Ed and Ian are going off on their adventures, and hopefully it brings Ed... Like, you could have almost done... I'm glad they didn't, because who knows when you, like, try to expand on something that's great. But you almost could have done, like, an Ed and Ian spin-off type thing where we see them getting into similar episodic adventures as they try to get closer to Ed's dad. We should do it. We should write it.
I would have liked even just like kind of a one-off. A lot of times anime do with like DVD releases an OVA or something, which is just like a bonus episode. And I could have rocked with an Ed and Ian just one episode thing just to see them going after Ed's dad.
It
and maybe
seems
not
like
even
a show
getting to
that
him, but like...
They really respect the endings that they set.
Yeah.
That it's really important to them to, you know, which makes it a little bit iffy why they even did the live action one. They really respect what they've done with these 26 episodes, and it's purposeful that we're thinking what could happen next.
Yeah.
Showing us isn't as fun as knowing the possibility.
I feel like there haven't been very many episodes where either you or I or both of us have been like, man, I wish we got to see more of this or more of that. But I think that's just a testament to how well this show does.
I think there are
building
plenty of
someone up in
episodes where
one
we've
episode.
seen that, where there'll be a villain or something built up in an episode, and it very rarely ends with, okay, now this is over, this person's gone. It's usually like people are going their separate ways, and you are kind of left wondering what's going to happen to the other people. Speaking of what's going to happen with the other people, let's talk a little bit about Jet and Spike. They're definitely the ones that are in the episode least. And I'm curious to know from you what I should take away from this episode to get ready for what's coming in the next 2 episodes with those characters.
I think mostly a feeling from Spike and Jet. Less of a feeling and more of like just understanding and remembering that this kind of relationship that's happening is pretty temporary. As much as they kind of settled into being this found family together and eating and doing these things, they've always been 4 people that just happen to be coexisting in the same space because it fit everyone's kind of needs. And I think that this episode is really the start of the ending of that.
That's interesting because you say that they know that and they're prepared for it, but it does feel like there's more weight to this little family breaking up, even though that was kind of the idea all along. It's pretty clear as they suck down tons of eggs that
and
they're
they made
kind
5
bummed out
bowls
that
of
Ed is
eggs.
gone.
That
Yeah.
was intentional, you know?
Yeah.
Like that was Jet, like I'm making food for everybody. And they kind of remember, oh shit, yeah, well, Ed's gone, Ein's not here, Faye left
Who knows
again.
if Faye is coming back, yeah.
And so I think there's a moment that is really emotionally kind of hits me every time where they're very clearly eating from like their own bowls, and then they both kind of start grabbing the bowls next to them and eating
Like,
from
why are
those.
we holding these places?
Yeah, and it's really sad because I think that Jet and Spike are genuinely sad that Ed is gone. Like, they both care about Ed a lot. I know Spike sees Ed as a bit of a daughter figure sometimes, or at least sees himself as a father figure too.
And Ed has been such a useful member of the team with all of her hacking and internet knowledge. There have been so many episodes where they've only gotten where they're going, or like gotten through a wall that's up because Ed knows how to get out of it.
Yeah. So I think for them, this really starts to get them in that mindset. I'm really excited for the next 2 episodes because I've said it several times. I'm going to say it probably several more times, but I can't really think of very many shows that have a better ending than Cowboy Bebop.
I'm pretty excited. This episode definitely... I know that the next 2 episodes are going to dive back into Vicious and Julia and some of the stuff that honestly isn't even what I've been most interested in about the show, even though I'm excited to see how it all plays out. I know that this episode isn't really a piece of that, but I do start to feel the forward closing momentum. This episode really felt like it was setting the tables for the apocalyptic stuff that's coming in the next couple episodes, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. I want to talk briefly about some of the music in this episode because I
There's
think
some good
there's
music.
a lot of slaps.
You had a really funny riff about how there are a couple of songs that are in English, but it's clear that it's not being performed by an English artist.
Or at least not written by one.
It's just kind of broken English words that don't connect, which is very true of English artists doing non-English language music. That happens all the time.
Throw in a couple words of Spanish in a song that don't.
One of
really
my favorite Ween songs is in French, and it's literally just words that he learned in French class.
It's
and it
fantastic.
sounds really pretty and flowy, but if you look at the translation, it's like brother, sister, yes, yes, Schweppes. I don't know. It's really funny.
That's really funny. The first song that kind of plays, the bass line sounds like Come Together by the Beatles, but then it's kind of like a hard rock woman
It's a
singing.
little different. Not
that
quite.
one was kind of cool. It was the same as the Beatles one. It just
all I'm saying is that it's as close to it as it can be without like a lawsuit.
Because they were doing doom 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 instead of boom boom.
But
So it's just.
Have you seen that clip of Vanilla Ice explaining why Ice Ice Baby is different?
No,
He's
that
like,
sounds hilarious.
Theirs is boom 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 bada boom boom. Mine is boom 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 boom. It's different.
That's so funny. I really like the harmonica fight song that's playing when Spike and Ed's dad are fighting. That was super fun.
The song at the end is really great.
Call Me. That one is high up there
one.
in the.
Well, it does a
Cowboy
perfect
Bebop
job
songs.
of adding to the emotion of the moment, because them just harling down eggs is funny. But it's also
funny.
sad and meaningful, and the episode really helps you know what you're supposed to be feeling in that moment.
Yeah,
The
I
music
think
does.
that image of the bye-bye that Ed painted, because, Ed's still a kid. Of course, Ed's not going to be like, all right, guys, I'm leaving now. See ya. No, Ed wrote bye-bye, painted it, and then went on her way.
But even that Ed did something like that and didn't just leave shows how meaningful these people have been to Ed also.
Exactly. I think it's so sweet. I love it. I love the goodbye cowgirl, see you in
See you
space.
somewhere,
Yeah. That is so sweet, and I think just such a nice send-off for Ed.
Yep.
And I love that Aang went with Ed, too. I think that's really sweet.
That's one of the most emotional moment, happy tears moment of the episode when, you gotta go. I'm leaving. I might not come back. But do you want to come with me? It was so
I think
cute.
it's so cute, because they were, instant best friends, and...
But it also makes me think, shouldn't there have been a conversation had about, can I bring the dog with me?
I know, Jet's like, what the fuck?
I'm sure they get it, but yeah.
Yeah.
I thought this was a really great episode. This is probably one of my favorite episodes of the overarching narrative episodes. I think it's really good. I really liked it, and every time I watched it, I liked it a little more. And it's pretty easy for me to pick a captain.
Yeah, me too.
It's Ed.
Gotta be Ed.
A lot of people have a good showing, but this episode, just like any other Ed-focused episode, shows how integral they are to the show and how they bring levity and they bring smarts and they bring just a type of interaction that the rest of the characters don't have. And I really like Ed. And even though we've only got 2 episodes left, I'm going to miss them in the 2 episodes
I am
left
too.
as well. Same for you? Anything?
Same for
anything
me,
to
yeah.
say for
Gotta
that?
go to Ed. I thought Ed was terrific. one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Ed episodes. I think it just has so much heart behind it, and like you said, it's hard not to get a little emotional at the end of this one. I think
it's such a weird television moment because there's something so special about when a TV show can make you feel emotional over something that looks really silly, like them sitting around a table and eating a bunch of
shoving eggs in there.
But it's relatable in some way because we've been like sad and shoving food down your throat before. It's a funny visual, but it's true. Okay, well, I think we did it. This was really fun. This was a really great episode of the show, and I am both a little sad and very excited to move on to the last couple episodes.
Yeah, me too. From inside a room full of eggs.
We'll see you next time, Space Cowgirl.
Somewhere, someday.
Some egg.
Someday!
Somewhere. What is that from? Is that from?
West Side Story.
Oh. Ansel Elgort, come on the show.
Didn't you tell me he got canceled for something?
Yeah, we'll talk about that off mic.
Bye, everyone.
I close my eyes and I keep seeing things. Rainbow waterfalls, sunny liquid dream. Confusion creeps inside me, raining down. Got to get to you, but I don't know how. Call me, let me know it's alright. Call me, don't you think it's about time? Please won't you call and ease my mind? Reasons for me to find you.
Thanks for listening. Support this show and our podcast network at patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast, where starting at $5 a month, you can get immediate access to all 40 outrageous sessions of Brokeback Bebop. See you next time, Space Cowboy.
Live up!